Title: Do Not Open the Box. A novel by Coyote. Part 1. The Shadow of the Past. Chapter 1. The Sanctuary Broken. The scent of honeysuckle and freshly turned earth was Wendy's comfort. It clung to her, a natural perfume, as she knelt in her herb garden, the afternoon sun warming her back. Her world was simple, yet rich: a small, sturdy farmhouse nestled deep in the countryside, a loyal horse named Star, and the bright, effervescent laughter of her 7-year-old daughter, Sally. Sally, with her fiery red hair inherited from Wendy, was currently attempting to teach Star to dance in the nearby paddock, the giggles drifting on the gentle breeze. Life wasn't grand in the material sense, but it was brimming with an immeasurable treasure: family, heritage, and peace. Central to that heritage was a small, intricately carved wooden box, hidden deep within a loose floorboard in Wendy's bedroom. Inside lay a collection of gemstones: sapphires like the midnight sky, emeralds the color of the deepest forest, rubies like droplets of blood, and diamonds that held the sun's fire. They weren't just stones. They were the legacy of her great-grandfather, a family heirloom passed down through generations, each facet holding a whisper of their history. Wendy had never thought to sell them. They were more precious than any monetary value could signify. The piece shattered with the force of a battering ram against her front door. Wendy dropped her trowel, her heart seizing. Sally's laughter died in the paddock. A chilling silence descended, broken only by the splintering wood. 5 figures, hulking and menacing, burst into her home. They were the Woes, a gang whose name was whispered in hushed, fearful tones in the nearest town: Bracco, the brutal leader, and his enforcers, Lovell, Sam, Leon, and Donovan. "Where is it, Wendy?" Bracco's voice was a low growl, his eyes like chips of flint. He held a length of metal pipe, tapping it against his palm with a sickening rhythm. "The box. The gems. We know you have them." Wendy backed away, her hands instinctively rising in a futile gesture of defense. "I don't know what you're talking about," she lied, her voice trembling. Her mind raced. Sally. She had to get to Sally. Lovell, a hulking brute with a permanent sneer, grabbed her arm, his grip like a vice. "Don't play coy, witch. We've been watching you. The great-granddad's treasure. Hand it over, and maybe we let the kid live." The threat ignited a cold, hard flame in Wendy's gut. "You won't touch her," she hissed, trying to pull away. "You won't get a thing from me." Bracco's eyes narrowed. "Foolish woman." He raised the pipe. The world spun. Pain exploded behind Wendy's eyes, then darkness. She wasn't sure how long she was out. When she came to, a searing agony shot through her head, and her limbs felt strangely constrained. Panic flared. She was in the barn, the familiar scent of hay and horse manure strong in her nostrils. Star whinnied softly from her stall nearby, an anxious sound. Wendy tried to move, but her body felt disconnected, numb. She was in a box. A wooden box. Through a small crack, she saw Bracco, his face grim, standing over her. "She's not moving," he said, his voice flat. He was talking to Lovell, who stood beside him, wiping blood from a knife on his trousers. "We searched everywhere. The gems aren't here." "She hid them well," Lovell grunted. "Stubborn old hag." "Leave her," Bracco commanded. "She's dead. Put her in the box. Take the kid. We'll use her to get the gems later. Someone will come looking for Sally, and then we'll have leverage. The gems are here somewhere. We'll find them." Wendy's breath hitched, a silent, desperate gasp. "Sally. Oh. God, Sally." She tried to scream, to push against the lid, but her body was unresponsive, a puppet with severed strings. The last thing she heard as the lid of the box creaked shut, plunging her into Stygian darkness, was Bracco's voice. "Do not open the box, boys. Let the farm rot with her in it. We have the girl." The whinny of star faded. The world became a suffocating void. Chapter 2. 2 years later. 2 years passed. The honeysuckle that had perfumed Wendy's garden grew wild and overgrown, strangling the remnants of her beloved herbs. The farmhouse, once a beacon of warmth and life, stood like a skeletal sentinel against the horizon, its windows shattered, its doors gaping like empty eye sockets. The barn, squat and weathered, seemed to crouch lower, a silent tomb. On a sweltering summer afternoon, 3 figures emerged from the dense woods bordering the property. They were teenagers, bored and seeking adventure in the desolate reaches of the rural landscape. There was Goatee Harris, a lanky boy with an unruly mop of brown hair and an impulsive glint in his eyes. Freya, with her sharp wit and even sharper vision, her dark braids swinging as she walked, and a quieter third boy, Liam, lagging a little behind. "This is it," Goatee announced, kicking at a loose piece of fencing. "The old Miller place. Heard it's haunted." Freya snorted. "Everything's haunted to you, Goatee. It's just abandoned. Probably belonged to some old recluse." They approached the house, its decay palpable. "Let's check it out inside," Goatee declared, already scrambling through a broken window. Freya, with a sigh, followed, Liam trailing uncertainly. Inside, dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight that pierced the grimy windows. Furniture was overturned, papers scattered, a testament to a violent past. "Rough," Liam mumbled, his voice quiet. "Someone really trashed this place," Freya observed, running a hand over a splintered table. "Makes you wonder what happened." They moved through the house, a sense of unease settling over them. Goatee, ever the one for grand gestures, pointed towards the barn. "Hey, let's burn the barn. Make a real ghost story out of it." Freya rounded on him. "Are you insane? Someone could get hurt. And it's arson, Goatee." "Relax, I was kidding." But even as he said it, Goatee started walking towards the barn, drawn by an inexplicable pull. The massive wooden doors hung askew on rusted hinges, revealing a dark, cavernous interior. He pushed one open further, letting the light filter in. The air was thick with dust and the lingering scent of old hay and something else. Something cold and metallic. His eyes scanned the gloom. In the far corner, almost swallowed by shadows, sat a large, roughly made wooden box. It looked like an old shipping crate, but there was something about its stillness, its isolated placement, that triggered a spark of curiosity in Goatee. His heart thumped a strange rhythm. "Hey, guys, look at this," he called, his voice echoing in the vast space. Freya and Liam joined him, their expressions mirroring his intrigue. "What is it?" Freya asked, peering over his shoulder. Goatee reached down, dusting off the lid. There were no locks, no clasps, just a heavy, unadorned lid. A strange compulsion urged him on. He gripped the edge, took a deep breath, and lifted. Chapter 3. The Unveiling. The air in the barn, stagnant for 2 years, stirred. A rush of cold, earthy scent, like disturbed grave soil, wafted from the opened box. Goatee peered inside. At first, he saw only shadows, then a shape began to resolve itself. A human shape. A woman, pale as parchment, lay curled within the confines of the box, her eyes, wide and unblinking, fixed on him. Her hair, once fiery red, was muted by dust, but the spark of life, or something akin to it, flickered within her gaze. A choked scream tore from Goatee's throat. Freya gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Liam let out a strangled cry and stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet. Oh my God, Freya whispered, her voice laced with terror. She's dead. Yet, as Goatee watched, the woman's chest gave a shallow, almost imperceptible rise and fall. A tremor ran through her body. Her lips parted, a dry, raspy sound escaping them. Don't run. The voice was barely a whisper, a rustle of dying leaves, but it was undeniably there. Please, don't run. Goatee, paralyzed by a mixture of horror and morbid fascination, found his legs rooted to the spot. Freya, though trembling, seemed equally transfixed. Liam, however, was already scrambling for the barn doors. Liam, wait, Freya called, but he was gone, fleeing into the safety of the woods. Goatee finally found his voice, though it was little more than a croak. Who are you? How did you get in there? The woman's eyes, still wide with a profound weariness, slowly blinked. It was as if she were waking from a long, terrible dream. The question, simple as it was, seemed to trigger something deep within her. Her brow furrowed, a flicker of pain crossing her face as she tried to recall. A name surfaced, faint but insistent. Wendy, she murmured, her voice gaining a fractional strength. My name is Wendy. Part 2. Echoes of Memory. Chapter 4. Fragmented Truths. Wendy tried to push herself up, a groan escaping her as agony lanced through her head and every joint in her body. It was like her muscles had forgotten how to function. Goatee, though still pale and shaken, instinctively reached out to help, his hands hovering uncertainly. Freya rushed over, her initial fear giving way to a strange compassion. You need help, Freya said, her voice surprisingly steady. Medical help. What happened to you? Wendy's eyes, though still clouded, struggled to focus on the reality of her situation. The barn, the fading light, the two young, fearful faces. Her mind, a fractured mosaic, began to pieces itself together. The honeysuckle, Sally's laughter, the splintering door, the woes, she whispered, her voice gaining a desperate urgency as memories flooded back. Bracco, Lovell, Sam, Leon, Donovan, each name was a fresh stab of pain. They broke in. They wanted the box. My great-granddad's gems. Her eyes widened, a dawning horror replacing the initial confusion. I wouldn't give it to them. It was here, in the house. They hit me. She touched her temple, a phantom ache echoing the blow that had laid her low. They left me for dead. And Sally, her voice broke, my daughter. Where's Sally? They took her. They said they'd use her to get the gems. Goatee and Freya exchanged a horrified glance. A woman murdered and put in a box, her daughter kidnapped by a vicious gang. This wasn't just an abandoned house. It was a crime scene, a tragedy that had been left to fester for 2 long years. 2 years, Wendy murmured, as if sensing their unspoken thoughts. I've been in here for 2 years. The realization was a fresh wave of shock, a chilling affirmation of the passage of time she had lost. Freya knelt beside her, her expression grim but determined. We have to get you out of here, Wendy. And we have to call the police. Wendy gripped Freya's arm, her strength surprising. No, not yet. If the police get involved, Bracco might hurt Sally. You heard me. They took her as leverage for the gems. I have to find her. Please, you have to help me. She's all I have left. Her eyes, full of a mother's desperate plea, locked onto Goatee and Freya. Goatee looked at Freya, then back at Wendy's spectral face, a strange mix of fear and empathy swirling within him. The adventure he craved had twisted into something far more real and terrifying. Freya, ever the pragmatist, weighed the impossible situation. The police might be too slow, too by the book. This woman, against all odds, was alive, and her daughter was in mortal danger. Okay, Freya said slowly, a plan already beginning to form in her mind. We'll help you, but you need to tell us everything you remember. Goatee nodded, a newfound resolve hardening his features. We'll find Sally. We promise. Chapter 5. The First Clue. With Goatee's help, Wendy slowly, painfully, emerged from the box. Her limbs were stiff, her head throbbed, but the desperate need to find Sally fueled a fire within her. Freya fetched a blanket from an old trunk in the corner of the barn, wrapping it around Wendy's frail form. They must have searched the house, Wendy murmured, her gaze fixed on the distant farmhouse. They were looking for the box of gems. Where was it? Goatee asked. Hidden, under a loose floorboard in my bedroom. A faint smile, ghostly thin, touched her lips. They wouldn't have found it. Not unless they ripped the whole place apart. They did, Freya confirmed grimly. The house is a wreck. But maybe they missed something, or left something behind in their rush. A flicker of hope ignited in Wendy's eyes. Perhaps, we need to go back inside. Carefully. Navigating the desecrated farmhouse was a somber journey. Each splintered doorframe, each overturned chair, spoke of the violence inflicted upon her home. Wendy's memories, once fragmented, began to coalesce with chilling clarity. She remembered the fear, the pain, the absolute certainty that her life was ending. And then, Sally's terrified face, being dragged away. They meticulously scoured the wreckage, Goatee and Freya trying their best to follow Wendy's instructions, though she was still weak and prone to dizzy spells. They moved through the ransacked living room, the ruined kitchen, and finally, her bedroom. It was here, amongst shredded clothing and overturned furniture, that Freya, with her keen eye, spotted it. Wedged beneath a knocked-over dresser, half buried in dust and debris, was a worn leather wallet. It was empty of cash, but a laminated ID card protruded from one of its slots. Look, Freya exclaimed, pulling it free. Wendy's eyes, though still unfocused, landed on the image. A man with a cruel smile looked back from the photo. Below it, in bold letters, was a name, Brako. And below that, a faded address. Not a full address, but a partial street name and a district. Brako, Wendy breathed, her voice filled with a mixture of terror and vindication. The leader, this is him. This is the gang's ID. Goatee grabbed the card. This changes everything. We have a lead. We can start looking for them. The small, laminated card was more than just an ID. It was a key, a fragile thread connecting them to the men who had destroyed Wendy's life and stolen her daughter. The hunt had begun. Chapter 6. Hunting Shadows. The next few days were a blur of hushed conversations, furtive movements, and relentless searching. Wendy, surprisingly resilient despite her ordeal, guided them, her mind sharp despite her body's weakness. They couldn't go to the authorities yet. The risk to Sally was too high. They had to be smart, discreet. The partial address on Brako's ID led them to a rundown district in the nearest big town, a maze of grimy back alleys, abandoned warehouses, and seedy establishments. They started by asking cautious questions, showing the ID photo to people on the street, homeless individuals, shopkeepers, local toughs. Most shied away, fear in their eyes. The name, Woes, was enough to shut down conversations. It's like the ghosts, Goatee muttered one evening, frustrated, as they shared a meal of cheap takeout in their borrowed car. No one wants to talk about them. They're not ghosts, Goatee, Wendy said, her voice grim. They're very real, and very dangerous. Freya, ever observant, had noticed a pattern. Several people, when questioned about Brako, had subtly gestured or alluded to a particular restaurant on the edge of the district, a greasy spoon diner called the Rusty Fork. It wasn't a direct answer, but it was a consistent whisper. I think Bracco has a routine, Praya suggested. People keep mentioning the Rusty Fork when his name comes up. Maybe he's a regular there. Maybe that's where he conducts business, or just where he feels safe. A cold dread settled over Wendy. A restaurant, open to the public, where Bracco might just be sitting, unaware that the woman he thought dead was now hunting him. It was a bold, terrifying plan, but it was their only one. Wendy knew the risk. If she walked into that place, she would be walking into a lion's den. But Sally was worth any risk. We go there, Wendy said, her voice firm, all doubt banished. Tomorrow. Part 3. The Reckoning. Chapter 7. The Vision and the Confrontation. The Rusty Fork was exactly as Praya had pictured, a dingy place with peeling linoleum, worn booths, and the oppressive smell of stale grease and cheap coffee. Wendy, her face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat and her body draped in a borrowed, oversized coat, sat in a booth near the back, facing the entrance. Goatee and Praya sat opposite her, their tension palpable. They ordered coffee, trying to look inconspicuous, their eyes constantly scanning the doorway. Hours crawled by. The lunch rush came and went. The dinner crowd started to trickle in. Wendy's heart pounded with a slow, heavy rhythm against her ribs. She felt a phantom ache in her head, the memory of the metal pipe. Then, he walked in. Bracco, unmistakably him, larger, perhaps, and with a harder edge to his eyes, but it was him. He strode in with an air of arrogant confidence, Lovell and Sam flanking him like hulking shadows. He scanned the room, his gaze dismissive, before heading towards a larger table in the corner, obviously reserved for him. The moment Wendy's eyes locked onto him, a jolt, sharp and electric, shot through her. It wasn't just recognition. It was a visceral resurgence of the past. The restaurant faded, replaced by the horrific tableau of her farmhouse. She saw Bracco again, his face contorted in a sneer, the glint of the metal pipe as he raised it high. She felt the impact, the sudden, overwhelming darkness. The cold, suffocating blackness of the box. Her breath hitched. A low growl escaped her throat, involuntary, primal. She gripped the table, her knuckles white. Goatee and Praya looked at her, alarmed. Bracco, in the process of pulling out a chair, paused. He hadn't seen her, but something in the air, a disturbance, made him turn, his eyes narrowing. His gaze swept over the room, then landed on Wendy. Recognition dawned on his face, slow and disbelieving, then rapidly morphed into a mask of pure terror. His jaw dropped. His eyes bulged. He stumbled back, knocking over his chair with a crash that echoed through the suddenly silent diner. You. Bracco's voice was a choked gasp, laced with a fear Wendy had only dreamed of inspiring. But you're dead. We killed you. Wendy pushed herself from the booth, her coat falling away, revealing her gaunt but defiant form. Her eyes, burning with 2 years of rage and grief, fixed on Bracco. The primal urge to fight, to make him pay, surged through her. You kidnapped my daughter, she snarled, taking a step forward. Lovell and Sam, recovering from their own shock, moved to intercept her. Bracco, however, was still reeling, a haunted look in his eyes. He fumbled inside his jacket. Goatee, seeing the glint of metal, reacted instinctively. Gun, he yelled, and without thinking, bolted out of the restaurant, his mind already racing towards the nearest payphone, the memory of Praya's earlier warning about calling the authorities ringing in his ears. Bracco pulled out a pistol, its black muzzle glinting ominously. He pointed it at Wendy's head, his hand trembling slightly. Stay back, Ghost. You're dead goods. I'll finish the job. Chapter 8. A risky bargain. The diner erupted in panicked screams. People scrambled for cover under tables or dashed for the exits. Lovell and Sam moved to flank Wendy, but Bracco's focus was solely on her. We want Sally, Preya said, her voice cutting through the chaos, surprisingly calm. She stepped forward, placing herself almost between Wendy and Bracco, her arms slightly outstretched in a gesture of negotiation, a clear signal to Wendy to hold her tongue. She knew Wendy would refuse to give up the gems, but this was their only way. You get Sally here, unharmed, and you both get what you want. We get Sally back, and you get the box of gems. Wendy began to shake her head, a denial forming on her lips. The gems were sacred, her family's legacy. But Preya's eyes, fierce and intelligent, met hers, conveying a silent, urgent message. Trust me. This is the way. Bracco hesitated, his gun still trained on Wendy, but a flicker of greed entered his eyes, warring with his fear. The gems, the mythical treasure he had believed was lost to him. The woman was an inexplicable nightmare, but the gems were real. How do I know this isn't a trick? Bracco snarled, his eyes darting between Wendy and Preya. You don't, Preya countered, her voice unwavering. But you know we're here, and we're not leaving without Sally. And we know you want those gems. This is your only chance to get them, Bracco. Deliver Sally, and the box is yours. No tricks, just a simple exchange. He considered it, his mind weighing the improbable resurrection against the tangible fortune. The gems, they were within his grasp. Fine, Bracco spat, lowering the gun slightly, though still keeping it aimed in the general direction. He pulled out an old flip phone, his fingers punching numbers. Lovell, Sam, cover them. Don't let them move. He barked into the phone. Leon, Donovan. Get the girl. Bring her to the Rusty Fork. Now, we have the gems. He paused, listening. Yes, the box. She'll hand it over once the girl is here. And don't mess this up. Move. Meanwhile, Goatee, trembling but resolute, had found a public phone booth a few blocks away. His fingers fumbled with the buttons, dialing E911. Yes, help. There's a hostage situation at the Rusty Fork Diner. A gang, the Woes, Bracco, Lovell, Sam, Leon, Donovan. They kidnapped a girl 2 years ago, and they have her mother there now, trying to get her back. They have guns. He gave the panicked operator the address, his voice cracking with urgency. Please, hurry. They're going to kill them. Chapter 9. The Exchange. The wait was agonizing. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Wendy stood, a silent sentinel of fury and hope, her eyes glued to the diner's entrance. Preya stood beside her, a hand discreetly on Wendy's arm, a silent anchor. Bracco, Lovell, and Sam paced restlessly, their paranoia growing with each passing second. Then, the doors swung open. Leon and Donovan entered, holding a young girl between them. Her red hair, though a little longer, was unmistakable. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. Sally, Wendy cried, a raw, choked sound torn from the depths of her soul. Mommy. Sally's voice was a tiny whisper, disbelieving, as if seeing a ghost. Wendy took a step forward, but Bracco raised his gun again. Not a step. The gems first, Ghost. The box is in the car, outside, Wendy said, her voice trembling with emotion, but steady. Goatee and Preya know where it is. They can get it. Preya nodded. It's true. The gems are in the car. But Sally comes to us first. Then the box. Bracco eyed them, then gave a curt nod to Leon and Donovan. Bring her over. Slowly, agonizingly, Sally was led towards her mother. As she got closer, Wendy saw the tears welling in her daughter's eyes, then a flash of recognition, a spark of hope. Sally broke free from Donovan's grip and launched herself into Wendy's arms. The reunion was a maelstrom of emotions: relief, sorrow, overwhelming love. Wendy clung to her daughter, burying her face in Sally's hair, tears streaming down her face. "My baby," she choked out. "Oh, my sweet girl. Mommy, I missed you so much," Sally sobbed, clutching her mother tightly. "Okay, enough of this sappy reunion," Bracco barked, his eyes on the prize. "The box, now." Pryor looked at Wendy, then at the gang. "Goatee has the car keys. He'll get it." Just as Bracco was about to send Lovell outside, a sudden cacophony of sirens pierced the air, growing louder with terrifying speed. Blue and red lights flashed through the diner windows, painting the grimy interior with an urgent, pulsating glow. Bracco's eyes widened in disbelief. "What the?" The front doors burst open. Armed police officers, SWAT teams, flooded the diner, their weapons raised. "Police, drop your weapons. Hands in the air." Goatee, his face streaked with sweat but beaming with triumph, appeared in the doorway, escorted by 2 officers, pointing emphatically at the woes. "Those are them. That's Bracco. They have the guns." Bracco roared in frustration, raising his gun at Wendy and Sally, but a dozen laser sights instantly coalesced on his chest. "Don't move, criminal," a commanding voice boomed. Chapter 10. Justice and Reunion. The woes, caught entirely off guard, were swiftly apprehended. Bracco, Lovell, Sam, Leon, and Donovan, their faces a mixture of shock, fury, and resignation, were wrestled to the ground, disarmed, and cuffed. The restaurant, moments ago a scene of terror, was now a flurry of police activity, paramedics, and the relieved murmurs of the patrons. Goatee rushed over to Wendy and Sally, his face alight with relief. "You guys are safe. I called them. I told you I would." Wendy, still clutching Sally, looked up at Goatee, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "You were magnificent, Goatee. All of you." Sally, eyes wide with the spectacle, finally looked at her mother, a question in her innocent gaze. "Mommy, what happened?" Wendy held her closer. "It's over, baby. It's all over now." The police, after securing the scene, approached Wendy cautiously. They were clearly bewildered by a woman who had been declared dead 2 years ago now standing before them, alive. Wendy, with Pryor and Goatee's help, recounted her unbelievable ordeal, the kidnapping, the gang's motive, the box, and her miraculous awakening. The police also recovered the box of gemstones from Wendy's car, confirming the gang's motive. In the aftermath, the woes were charged with murder, kidnapping, assault, and a litany of other crimes that stretched back years. Justice, though delayed, had finally arrived. Goatee was happy. More than happy. He was profoundly proud of what he and Pryor had done. They had inadvertently stumbled into a nightmare, but they had emerged as heroes. Sally, still a little stunned by the whirlwind of events, clung to her mother, her small hand never leaving Wendy's. Wendy, weak but radiating a newfound peace, held her daughter as if she would never let go. Later that evening, after being checked over by paramedics and giving their statements, Wendy sat with Sally, Goatee, and Pryor in a quiet hospital room. Wendy, though still fragile, looked more alive than she had in 2 years. "I can never thank you enough," Wendy said, her voice thick with emotion, looking at Goatee and Pryor. "You saved my life, and you brought Sally back to me. Your bravery, your loyalty, I'm forever in your debt. Goatee, blushing, shrugged. We wanted to help. Freya smiled gently. We're just glad you're both safe, Wendy. Wendy reached for the wooden box of gemstones, which had been returned to her after being processed as evidence. Its surface, once so familiar, now felt heavy with the weight of its history. She looked at Sally, her daughter's face illuminated by the soft hospital lights. Sally, Wendy said, her voice soft but clear. These are yours, now. They've been in our family for generations. They hold our history, our strength. They're a reminder of where we come from, and the courage that runs in our blood. Sally, eyes wide, took the box from her mother's hands. Promise me, Wendy continued, a profound weariness settling over her, that you'll pass them on to your children, and they to theirs. They're a legacy, a bond, a part of us. Sally nodded, clutching the box tightly. I promise, Mommy. Wendy smiled, a soft, content expression spreading across her face. Her mission was complete. Her daughter was safe, surrounded by love, and the legacy was secure. The fight was over. The pain, the long sleep, the waking nightmare. It was all fading. The light in her eyes began to dim, slowly, peacefully, like a candle flame flickering out after a long burn. Her grip on Sally's hand loosened. Her breathing became shallow, then ceased. Wendy, the woman who had defied death, who had returned from the grave to reclaim her daughter, finally went to sleep for good. Her journey was complete, leaving behind a legacy of courage, a box of ancient gems, and a daughter forever touched by a mother's fierce, undying love. The end. Story by Kayode E.